Time is ready to start. Good morning, afternoon and evening, everyone participating in this session with us in Stockholm or joining us online. Welcome to the World Water Week 2025 session on cool forests, benefits of forests for water and agriculture. My name is Maria Öhlund and I'm project manager of the Focali Research Network, Forest, Climate and Livelihoods. And I will be your moderator for this session. And through this session, we will explore the multiple benefits that forests provide for water and agriculture with experts from around the world explaining both the science and how to translate this into real-world examples that we will hear about. And this session is also setting the stage for an upcoming report that will be launched later this year at COP30. And to tell us more about this and to start off the session, I would like to welcome Amy Duschel, Senior Forestry Officer, Forest Division of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, to deliver the opening remarks. So, Amy, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you so much to the organizers for inviting me. I wish I was with you in person. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to this World Water Week session on cool forests, the benefits of forests for water and agriculture. I think, as we all know, forests are mostly highlighted for their benefits for carbon sequestration and storage and biodiversity conservation, but the benefits of forests for agricultural production are generally understated. And along those lines, not only understated, but often forest conservation and agricultural production are posed as opposing and mutually exclusive goals. And this perceived trade-off between balancing food security and attaining environmental goals often fuels tensions, especially in land-constrained regions. But this perception really overlooks a growing body of evidence that shows that forests can be powerful allies for agriculture. And of course, forests improve agricultural productivity by regulating water supply, protecting soils, providing habitats for pollinators and natural pest predators, and buffering farms and farm workers against climate extremes through cooling benefits. At a global scale, recent evidence shows that the cooling benefits associated with forest conservation can provide an estimated 20 to 40% bonus climate change mitigation that is not accounted for in any of our carbon-centric measurements and modeling. And at the regional scale, and this is seen from evidence from the Amazon Cerrado region in Brazil, forests can prevent up to a 5 degrees Celsius increase in land surface temperature. So we're really talking about unaccounted for mitigation from forests, but then also huge adaptation benefits. And, we're here at World Water Week, and, the effects of forests on the water cycle at global, regional, national, and subnational scales are of utmost importance. Forests create a more consistent water supply with better water quality and reduced flood risks, which in turn, of course, benefit agriculture. In the Amazon basin, evidence shows that tree-transpired rainfall accounts for up to 70% of regional rainfall at the end of the dry season. So that's a huge contribution of forests for agriculture. And forests support water storage and soil, providing good conditions for growing crops and mitigating the effects of drought stress. So forest conservation, forest restoration, and sustainable use can really help enhance these water services. And understanding and quantifying the relationships between forest, water, and agriculture are really needed to help us move beyond some of these either unknown benefits or even negative narratives about forests and agriculture, and moving beyond this forest conservation versus production debate. And it can also help us design better landscape management strategies where we're using forests and trees as allies against climate change and improving food and water security. This agenda could not be more important to FAO at this moment as we are seeking to advance joint work on forestry and agriculture, including through our technical committees at the highest level of FAO's governance. So FAO, together with partners from the Stockholm Environment Institute, the Nature Conservancy, and Conservation International, and over 40 authors from 25 leading organizations in these topics, are finalizing a report that Maria mentioned on the benefits of forest for agriculture that will be launched in just a couple months at COP30 in Brazil. The session today includes many of the authors of this report, and it's an opportunity to really focus on the multiple benefits that forests provide for agriculture and use this knowledge to shape better policies and plans. So I thank you for joining us today as we hear from fantastic, world-renowned experts and build a global movement on forests for agriculture. I look forward to watching the session from afar, and I hope all enjoy whether you're online or in person today. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Amy, for setting the stage and highlighting that forests benefit agriculture in so many ways, especially through the water services and the need for landscape management to leverage this science. As Amy mentioned, we have many of the report authors here that we will hear from, and I really look forward to learn more in this upcoming report to be launched at COP30 in the heart of the Amazon, where the importance of forests for both local and downwind agriculture are clear, which some of the experts will talk more about in the session today. But before we begin our presentation, we would also like to check in with you here in the room, how you are feeling now. So we will run a short and quick Mentimeter poll. You can please scan this QR code to join, or join the Mentimeter link if you're with us online. And the question is, which type of water body do you feel like today? Do you feel like a calm lake in the middle of the forest, reflective and ready to listen? Do you feel like a meandering stream flowing through the villages and farms, just making your way through, doing your best? Or are you a mighty rushing river, energized and ready to engage? Or an overdrawn groundwater aquifer, drained and in need of replenishment? So let's see. You should have those options when you will soon see some of the answers and check in with you, how you're feeling. And no matter how you're feeling today, we will hopefully get some more energy in this session as well. So we'll see if we will get some of the answers coming up on the screen. Let us see. I have to take a step back. So, let's see. Many feel like it's a calm lake, or you're just making your way through the landscape, the water connecting the forest and the farms. That's good. We're not too drained. That's great. Maybe we'll be more like rushing rivers after hearing from all the experts here today. So, welcome, all of you, regardless of what water you feel like today. So we'll begin the first part of our session, where we will hear more about the science behind the benefits the forests provide to agriculture and through their impact on the water cycle, and how they may result in trade-offs and synergies. And we have two speakers in this part. So I will welcome Dr. David Ellison, who will present on the global and regional scales. David is a senior researcher at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, SLU, and he will join us online. And then we'll have in the room, Rafaela Flach will present on national and subnational scales. Rafaela is a research fellow at the Stockholm Environment Institute. So I will welcome both of you. We'll start with David to deliver your presentation. So I hope David is with us online. Yes?
Great. I hope you can all hear me. I want to focus on the role of tree, forest, and vegetation cover in promoting the water cycle and in also cooling the planet. And I'd like to start with the global hydrologic cycle. if we only had, so the ocean only contributes 40,000 cubic kilometers of water to rainfall on the land surface, but on the land surface, we actually have a much larger share of rainfall. So the principal question is, where does that come from? And the answer is that a lot of it comes from evapotranspiration from the land surface. The next question you have to ask is, what if we lost all of that tree, forest, and vegetation cover from the land surface? Would we then only have 40,000 cubic kilometers of rainfall? What might that mean for agricultural production, since that's terribly important for this particular panel? And once you think about that, then you also have to think about the fact that historically we've lost about 50% of the forest cover. What would happen if we were to bring all that back? Would that mean we would have significantly more rainfall as a result, because we would have more evapotranspiration from the land surface? And what might that mean for agricultural production? Could we produce more? Or, since there's significant land use competition between, say, trees and agriculture, might that mean we only can produce less agriculture? And what might that mean also for the cooling of the planet? The basic point here is that there are large and important benefits from increased wetland and forest cover in general. However, it's very important to try to connect local and regional or continental effects, since basins, watersheds, catchments, whatever you want to call them, are connected. Changes in one affect changes in the other. So forest landscape restoration actually requires considering both upwind and downwind relationships. Now, if we reforest an upwind location here in the catchment and we actually deforest the catchment, we might still have significantly more water, even though there's deforestation at the catchment scale, because most of the evapotranspiration is coming in from an upwind location. On the other hand, if we had a deforested upwind locations, historically say that a lot of forest cover has been lost for whatever reason, agricultural production or other things. And what would happen if we reforested the catchment? What might that mean for precipitation? Presumably, it would significantly reduce the amount of precipitation that's available. When you reforest, a lot of it would just go away, which would have very significant impacts on water runoff. So it's terribly important that we connect the local scale to the larger scale. What is going on around us? How do reforestation strategies fit into the larger wind and weather patterns around us in the upwind locations and downwind locations? This is also important for downwind locations. So I like to use this diagram as a way of thinking about the general importance and how to approach reforestation strategies at the local scale. Now, the dominant paradigm for infiltration and groundwater recharge was that if we had less forest cover down at this end of the left-hand side of the graph, we would actually have more infiltration and groundwater recharge. But what we're learning is that this is actually not true, and that the opposite is really true. And that if we have no or little tree and forest cover on the left-hand side, then most of that goes away, the water goes away, rainfall goes away as overland flows, and we have almost no infiltration and groundwater recharge. And in order to maximize infiltration and groundwater recharge, we actually want to be at a much higher level, sort of a medium level of tree and forest and vegetation cover. And I like to think of this as the minimum restoration threshold. We want to at least be at this stage. Anything below this stage is essentially a degraded environment from a hydrological perspective. And so, for the most part, at least we want to be able to reach this minimum restoration threshold to maximize groundwater and recharge potential. However, the optimal tree cover density is perhaps a bit different, right? Because we also, since you saw this in the first slide, we want to be able to enhance the RET regime, the evapotranspiration, as much as possible. This may not only be local, right? Some of it will be lost to other locations, but enhancing the ET regime will improve water availability in the landscape around us and in downwind locations as well. So the optimal tree cover density has to be balanced with the needs for water at the catchment scale. Catchments have been transformed by human use. and we use a lot of the water. So that has to be taken into consideration. But ideally, we want to be able to enhance the ET regime as much as possible. So we want to be somewhere in this range on the right-hand side of the graph, as long as it doesn't endanger or threaten water availability at the catchment scale. And of course, it's this optimal tree cover density that is perhaps most challenged by local water demand, by climate change relationships, and of course, it's politically somewhat more problematic to achieve. Now, the other point here is, of course, that tree and forest cover provides cooling. And it provides cooling at two levels. I focused here first on the landscape level. And because tree and forest cover uses incoming solar radiation to evapotranspire, it puts energy back up into the lower atmosphere and keeps the land surface from heating up. Land surfaces that do not have adequate water or tree and forest cover tend to be significantly warmer. So tree and forest cover cools the land surface at the very local scale. But it also provides global cooling because evapotranspiration promotes low-lying cloud formation.
Thank you, David. You have 1 minute
reflectivity of incoming solar radiation that goes back out into space as a result of the creation of low-lying clouds. Adding more tree and forest and vegetation cover to the land surfaces promotes evapotranspiration, which promotes additional low-lying cloud cover in the landscape. So to summarize very quickly, the total amount of water available for rainfall on the land surface is variable and depends heavily on the density and extent of tree and forest cover. More tree and forest cover positively affects the storage of water on land surfaces through infiltration and groundwater recharge, and the relative intensity of the hydrologic cycle across land surfaces through ET production and moisture recycling. More tree and forest cover further affects cooling potential, both on land surface temperatures and on global cooling. And of course, agricultural production is one of the recipients of these benefits if we have more water cycling through the landscape as a result of additional tree, forest, and vegetation cover. And of course, agricultural production would be the victim if we reduce more tree and forest cover or remove more tree and forest cover from the landscape. So having more trees in the landscape provides more water, makes more water available, provides cooler landscapes, and provides a better environment for human well-being and for agricultural production and so on. And in case you're interested, there's some links for further reading. I think some of these slides might be cycled around at a later point. And I will stop there, and hopefully I've more or less managed to keep within my time frame.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing. And yes, by the very end, you will be able to scan a QR code and sign up your email address so that you will get a notification both about the report and you can get more material from this session.
You can't hear anybody. Somebody speaking?
Yes, so thank you, David. Thank you so much. I will welcome Rafaela Flach up on stage as our second expert in this segment of the seminar. So welcome, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Rafaela Flach. I am a research fellow at the Stockholm Environment Institute. Thank you so much, Maria. And recently, I've been involved in this huge effort that people have already mentioned on the report, in which we are trying to map the benefits of forests and trees to agriculture, and what we know and what we don't know about this. Next slide, please. Oh, should I do it?
No.
Okay.
Taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Come. We have Jigshan at FAO in Rome.
Oh, thank you. So, on this presentation, I'm going to give you a little bit of overview of these mechanisms of how they happen. They connect forests and trees, water and agriculture, mostly on the local scale and some national scale. And what changes when trees and forests are there, and give a little bit of a snapshot of some examples that we found. And then the importance of scale on all of this. Next slide, please. So, as a researcher, I love the nitty-gritty of mechanisms and all of the physical processes that are happening in this. So I have to say the first version of the slide was much more polluted. So this is not a comprehensive list of all of the mechanisms, but the important thing is there are two main families of mechanisms that are in play. First, we have the biogeochemical mechanisms that generate system outcomes. And then we have the agricultural mechanisms that connect those things to agricultural productivity. And then on the local scale, that's where the second set of mechanisms happen, where the crops feel the need for water or the effect of higher temperatures. And a lot of the system mechanisms are related to water. So these are the ones that I decided to highlight here. Next slide, please. So, as you know, these benefits that forests can provide to agriculture are not uniform, and they depend on a lot of things. First, you can see in terms of forests and agricultural systems, there's so much diversity in how forests, trees, and agriculture can interact. So we have windbreak systems, we have farms with trees, we have farms that are close to forest areas. So in each one of these cases, the distance, the pattern, and the location matter, but also where these things are located. So the effects are different if you are in a temperate climate or in a tropical area. And that's why understanding these local processes is very important. Next slide, please. The main result, I think, that we found is that even though it seems like the science is confusing because it is very local, there is a lot of evidence out there. And it's a very mature but diverse body of evidence. So there's a lot of field studying this. So there are from agricultural economists to climatologists looking into these questions, and a lot of hydrology also. People are looking at this from different scales. So some of these studies are at the basin scale, some of these studies are at the farm scale, some of them look at the whole planet and how forests, big biomes, are affecting rain systems. And as I mentioned before, we have this chain of mechanisms, and some of the studies that we look at only look at the first set of mechanisms, and some of them look only at the second set of mechanisms. But it is at the local scale that is possible to look at all of them, and sometimes even with statistics, understand directly the effect that the presence or quantity of forests and trees can affect agriculture. And in the next section, in the next couple of speakers, you're going to have a lot of really cool examples of people who are working in the local scale. But here I decided to highlight some examples that I found in the literature. Next slide, please. So for example, I thought I was going to have the presentation here so I could read, so I can't see here. You guys have to excuse me. So I decided to highlight these three examples because they happen in 3 different places, in 3 different scales, and they were measured in 3 different methodologies, if you go through the actual articles, which I'm not going to go through. Oh, thank you. Yes, this is amazing. So you can see the benefits can be felt in very different environments, from Kansas, Nebraska in the US to southern Ethiopia to Brazil, and there's a lot of other stuff out there, as you will see soon. But the evidence is there that this is possible, and forests do have direct benefits to agriculture that can be measured as well. Next slide. So in summary, there is enough evidence to support action and to make sure that we can reap benefits of forests to agriculture. But this does not mean that the benefits are homogeneous and that they are spread equally. We have also trade-offs to consider. But at the other side, there are synergies that we can consider and ways in which we can reap the most amount of benefits within the same system. So this requires a combination of both considering general guiding principles and also tailor-made approaches that take into consideration local characteristics. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our next discussions.
Yes. Thank you both, David and Rafaela, for illustrating. Thank you both. For illustrating how forests affect the water cycle at global, national and subnational scales. And as Rafaela, one of the report authors, shared here, there's so much diversity in how forests and trees influence in so many ways and differ between contexts, but that the evidence points at the importance of these connections, and that's why we're here today. And that, thank you, Rafaela, that's a great bridge over to the next segment in our session here today. So now that we've explored the scales at which forests affect agriculture through their impacts on the water cycle, we will, in this second part titled Forests for Agriculture in Action, look at what this translates to on the ground through 4 exciting examples. So, via our invited experts sharing lessons from different corners of our globe, we will get to learn more from the following cases. And all of these cases from across the world, they're joining us online. We will have a focus on less rain, more risk, agriculture fuels and faces deforestation's impact, presented by Dr. Gabriel Pires, professor at the Federal University of Viçosa in Brazil. We'll also hear about restoration and water in Ethiopia by Nasibu Kedrikan. He's monitoring and evaluation manager at We Forest in Ethiopia. And we'll hear about benefits of tropical forest for rural workers by Dr. Nicholas Wolf, climate change scientist at the Nature Conservancy. And then we'll have Beyond Cool Forests, how trees on farms can improve water and food security by Aida Barquez-Tobella, researcher at the Agrotécnico Serra Center in Lleida in Spain and also at SLU here in Sweden. So I welcome this great group of online speakers to take the stage. And we'll hear by one at a time. So we'll start with Gabrielle.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Morning, welcome.
I'm just going to share my screen here.
We hear you. So
okay.
I think Yigshan will share your
Great.
slide.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Gabriela. I speak from Brazil, and I'm going to talk to you about a really emblematic example of this relationship between agriculture and forest in our country. So the title of my talk is Less Rain, More Risk, Agriculture Fuels and Faces Deforestation Impacts. Well, our country is known as the host of the beautiful Amazonia, a hotspot of biodiversity, carbon stocks, but we're also known as a wide world agricultural producer. We became leading soybean, maize, and other commodities producer, mainly by widely adopting multiple cropping systems in Cerrado and in the southern and southeastern border of the Amazon. So in these multiple cropping systems, what happens is that we take advantage of a long rainy season provided by the forest to fit more than one crop cycle inside the rainy season length. So in a typical example, in rainfed systems, we have this double cropping system where by the beginning of the rainy season, the soybean is sown, and then after it grows, by the end of its growth cycle, and it is harvested, and then immediately after a second crop is planted, which is mainly maize, but can be cotton or sorghum as well. And then this second crop goes until by the end of the rainy season. Well, in irrigated systems, maybe a third crop will fit in, just like beans, so that we can have multiple cropping in the same area. But this is only possible, and this multiple cropping, high yield agricultural systems, they are only viable here in the tropics because we have a long rainy season, which is commonly to 140 to 150 days. That is long enough to accommodate more than one crop cycle, while we still have temperature and solar radiation in a favorable manner. Well, obviously, the stability of the rainy season onset, the stability of the rainy season length.
Gabrielle, sorry, I have to interrupt you. Sarah mentioned that people on site cannot see when you project it, so I will have to project it. So I'll quickly switch over. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
All right. Yes, I think it should be okay now. Please continue. Thank you.
Okay, so do I start over? Or can I just go on from where I am? Okay.
Oh, the slide
so
where
the
she
stability
ended.
of this rainy season, this long rainy season, and the rainy seasonal set is also important for this management of this important crop cycle. Next slide, please. Okay, so this long and stable rainy season onset, the thing is, this long and stable rainy season length and onset, they are favored by the proximity to forests. So here we can see this beautiful forest surrounding a cropping area. Well, in highly deforested area, the rainy season onset can delay up to 70 days to begin, which is a lot, and directly impacts the rainy season length, the agricultural productivity as well, and the rainfall amount that falls within the forested area. In addition, the likelihood of having a rainy season onset occurring earlier than normal, it decreases as the local deforestation fraction increases. So the proximity to forests regulates not only the rainfall amount, but the length of the rainy season and the rainy season onset that is extremely vital for the success of double cropping systems. Okay, so next slide, please. And why is that? So we've heard it from the previous speakers. Why does Amazon help so much to keep watering these areas? It's because the Amazon trees, they are water pumps. They remove water from the soil due to their really pervasive root systems. They remove water and then pump it in the atmosphere through their leaves, increasing atmospheric moisture. And this precipitation will fall local on the forest or in the nearby areas, and especially in the agricultural areas as well, that are in the south and southeastern part of the forest. So next slide, please. Well, unfortunately, the cycle and the evolution of the agricultural growth in Brazil in the past few decades has been mainly through expansion of the planted area. So we have a cycle of degradation in the Amazon. Starting from the upper left corner, we have this beautiful forest, and then the degradation starts mainly with logging, followed then by burning, and then clearing of the area for pasture. And after a few years, this land becomes low productive and is quickly abandoned or then converted to crops. This process goes on and on, degrades soils, degrades forests, and drives further deforestation because this land is not productive anymore. And then we have crops replacing the natural system. Next slide, please. So it is clear in this session that the expansion of agricultural frontier in the past few decades has been degrading the ecosystem service that it depends on, or the climate regulation provided by the Amazon rainforest. Not only the rainfall amount, but the length of the rainy season and the rainy season onset, they are favored by the proximity to forests. So it is so important that these two, the agribusiness and forest conservation, they work together, because the conservation of forests in savanna, especially in the southern Amazonia and southeastern Amazonia, is not only justified by the effects on the biodiversity, carbon, but also has socioeconomic justifications. It is in the best interest of the agribusiness as well, not only the government, the public, and the environment. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I thank you for each one, and I'm looking forward to hearing the next presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gabrielle, and really showing that trees are water pumps, and that's why they should be here, center stage at World Water Week. So we will go to the next speaker. I invite Nasibu Kedrikan from Ethiopia and We Forest to take the stage. Welcome. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me this chance. I'm Nasibu. I'm a data analyst from We Forest. We Forest is an international NGO mainly working on forest restoration. So here I will share with you some practical case experience from Ethiopia, linking restoration, water, and agriculture. Next, please. Next, yeah. We will begin with the general context of why restoration matters in Ethiopian context. Then I will share that what is We Forest is doing in Ethiopia. And finally, we will look at some impacts, particularly in relation to water and farming. Next, please. So as you may of you all know, Ethiopia faces complex challenge to balance ecosystem and livelihood at the same time. That is the main challenge we have. So we are challenged by population pressure, forest degradation and deforestation, and land degradation. All of these are directly reduce agricultural productivity, which is a backbone of people's livelihood here in Ethiopia. So that's why we are working on restoration. Restoration is not only about planting trees and restoring the landscape, but it is also working on resilient ecosystem and securing also sustainable livelihood. Next, please. So in Ethiopia, we are running 3 active projects. We have 2 projects in Amhara region, which is on the northern parts of the country. And we have also 1 project and the mega project that we have in Tigray region, which is the oldest and the senior projects we have. So all our projects are focusing on forest landscape restoration, restoring the landscape. But our work goes beyond trees, beyond planting trees. So we also support communities with forest-friendly alternatives, such as, for example, we have agroforestry intervention, we have beekeeping and other income generating options. So at the same time, we are also investing on soil and water conservation measures, activities, and we are also working on applied research with partners and with a strong monitoring and evaluation framework. Next, please. So here we are interested to present some pictures showing our impact between 2018 from DESA project that we have in the northern parts of the country in Tigray. The first image is in 2018 and the second one is 2024 with significant changes in biomass and carbon, which are very crucial for climate change mitigation and sustainable ecosystem integrity. So here are also few examples from our project of DESA, what we have been achieved so far. In DESA, we restored more than 23,000 hectares and more than 22 million trees are also growing. More than 100 native trees are regenerating. So over 16,000 families are benefited from the project and they are improving their livelihood. And most importantly, we are seeing a clear impact on water availability. That is a very important sector in dryland system. So springs are emerging, the vegetation cover are improving, and the landscape also becoming more productive for agriculture. Next, please.
Minute. Thank you so much.
So we have multi-year data showing that restored areas with assisted natural regeneration, conservation practice, and we have also better infiltration. And restored areas, on the other hand, show reduced infiltration and more runoff, which lead to erosion. Even our resistivity surveys show higher groundwater potential in restored areas compared to degraded one. In fact, some new springs have started to emerge. Communities themselves are now also testify our changes. So they see the water, the crops, and the benefit every day. They are seeing the change. So next, please. So let me leave you with one final message. Healthy forest means healthy water. Healthy water sustain our farm and our livelihood. So every tree we plant help recharging our spring and prevent soil erosion and secure the water and the agriculture in Ethiopia, what we are depend on. So thank you very much for your attention. So if you need further information, please feel free with the contact to contact with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nisibu. And Ethiopia is close to my heart. I've lived several years in your country. And thank you for showing the crucial that to put communities and livelihood benefits at the heart and involving communities in every step. So thank you so much. And now we will turn to Nicholas Wolf for the next presentation.
Great to be here. It's morning in Maine, and I wish I was in Stockholm with all of you. It's a great treat. I'm going to be talking about the benefits of tropical forests for rural agricultural workers. And I just want to highlight my collaborators on this work for the last almost decade, Yuta Masuda and Luke Parsons. Next slide. So I don't have to talk much about the difference between tropical forests and cleared areas from temperature perspective because of David Ellison's excellent overview of this. Generally speaking, the figure that's often seen from satellite measurements is 3 to 5 degrees. And in field measurements, we were seeing differences of up to 8 degrees. So pretty dramatic differences. Next slide. The other point is compared to climate change, these deforestation effects are almost immediate. Climate change, as devastating as it is something that gradually happens over decades to centuries. We're expected to see somewhere on the order of 2.6 degrees by the end of the century. Deforestation happens almost immediately locally, right, from days to months. And just a reminder that we're losing 18 football fields of tropical forest every minute from some measurements. So that's the size of Panama. So in terms of local impact, we're experiencing what's going to happen over a century of climate change in almost immediately, right? And so this is really having an impact on the local vulnerable communities. Next slide. These impacts, these temperature differences are really important when we think about thresholds. So for humans, like all living creatures, we have thresholds beyond which things start to go really ugly. The leftmost figure is a common threshold of about 30 degrees for temperature, beyond which it's really hard to get much work done. And on the right, it's the wet bulb globe temperature. This is an important metric because this includes solar radiation and humidity and temperature. Very difficult to measure from satellites, but when we can get field measurements like we do here, you can see that much of the day is beyond a threshold for human activity. And so this has real consequences when you start to push these thresholds as a human. It affects our physiology in major ways, our hearts, our lungs, our muscles, our brain, and consequences can be deadly, as I'll show in the next slide. On the left here is some work that looked at what's happening currently in 2018, in terms of how many hours of productivity are lost across the globe. Already 1.5 million workers are losing 2 hours of work time just because it's too hot to get the sort of typical heavy work that's associated with agriculture. And if you start adding climate change on top of that, it as you can see, increases from 3.5 million all the way up to 9.3 million with 2 degrees warming. On the right, this is a new study that's about to be released tomorrow from University of Leeds, Carly Reddington, and Dom Sfraklin, and pretty stark results. They estimated about 28,000 deaths per year from deforestation warming. So look for that in Nature Climate Change coming out tomorrow. Next slide. And so what can we do about this? Well, I think, one important piece of positive news is that land use planning can make a big difference if we're thinking about it before we start just clearing land without much thought. So important studies have shown that smaller patches have a lot less local warming. That might seem obvious, but another important point about that is that the heat from those cleared areas also doesn't penetrate the forest as much. So with larger patches, not only do you have higher extremes, but that heat is moving into the forest itself. So with some better sort of landscape planning, we can make a difference. The other thing is it's really important to include these forest benefits for countries' national determined contributions. There's just not enough thought on the policy angles and the positive outcomes of forests for people's health. We need to do a better job of that. And we need some financial mechanisms similar to what we do with carbon to value forests for their adaptation role for humans. And some important work came out in 2022 showed that reforestation can actually lessen or completely mitigate the warming from climate change but by 2050. So in other words, reforestation has a real potential too. And with that, I will end with a final slide. And please reach out to any of us if you have questions about this work.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, for sharing this, maybe often forgotten aspects of health. And with what we are seeing, the increasing heat waves and that farmers, agriculture workers are really exposed to this heat. So thank you for sharing and also sharing what benefits can be from forests to address this situation. So the last speaker in this segment is Ida Berquez-Tubela, also joining us online. So welcome, Ida. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Maria. Very happy to be here. So, yeah, let's see. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we don't see your presentation yet, but it's should be coming. Yes, let's see.
Okay, perfect. So far we've heard a lot about the importance of forests, and now I would like to shift the lens to show also how trees on farms can contribute to improving water and food security. Next, please. So trees are an integral component of agricultural landscapes across the world. Next. And tree-based restoration, and in particular agroforestry, is a central approach in many restoration initiatives, such as the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration or FAR 100. Next, please. And this is due to the many benefits that trees provide, not just in terms of carbon sequestration, but also for food and nutrition security, for livelihood, soil fertility and health, etc. Next, please. And there are several successful agroforestry-based restoration examples where increased tree cover has brought wide benefits. And one of the most iconic examples is the case of southern Niger. But a central question, in particular in the context of drylands with limited water resources, is, next. Oh, yeah, this is the question. What is the impact of this increased tree cover on water availability? Next, please. And not so long ago, there seemed to be a general consensus that more trees always mean less water. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, when you grow trees and croplands, you use more water. This is what we used to hear. Next, please. Luckily, during this past decade, there have been several advances in this field, and we now recognize that there are many benefits, many mechanisms by which trees, and forests modify water availability. And these are some of the mechanisms also linked to what Rafaela was mentioning before. And today I'm going to focus on the mechanism of infiltration and how trees and farms can improve soil water infiltration capacity. Next, please. So why is this important? Soil infiltration governs the recharge of both groundwater and soil water. Groundwater, which is like what we call blue water stores, they sustain base flows and dry season flows in streams and other aquatic ecosystems. Groundwater also provides a reliable source of fresh water that can serve as a buffer in times of surface water scarcity. And on the other hand, we have soil water, which sustains rain-fed crops and is therefore central for food security. The water that is not entering the soil runs off, increasing the risk of erosion and flooding. So this is why soil infiltration capacity is so important. Next, please. And now I'm going to take you to the agroforestry parklands of Sapone, where we have our first case study. This is in Burkina Faso in West Africa. And here in this landscape, you can see all these scattered trees, and then farmers grow different crops under this tree cover. Next, please. So as you can see in this picture, trees have both negative and positive impacts on soil and groundwater recharge. The positive ones being that they can enhance the infiltration capacity of soils and the degree of preferential flow, and also through shading, they can reduce the degree of soil evaporation. The negative ones being that they have higher interception and transpiration losses. So our central question was, what is the net effect of tree cover on groundwater recharge? And in this particular place in Burkina Faso, we found that there is an intermediate tree cover that maximizes groundwater recharge. We call it the optimum tree cover, and it's optimal for groundwater recharge. David calls this the minimum restoration threshold. So below this optimum, the positive impacts of trees on groundwater recharge outweigh the negative ones, and the opposite happens above this optimum. Next, please. And we also find opportunities to increase this optimum intermediate tree cover through different management approaches, for example, through species selection or through pruning of trees or livestock management. Next, please. So we have found more evidence from other agricultural landscapes across the tropics, both in Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa, also including rangelands, pasturelands, and croplands, where we see that trees have many benefits for the recharge of soil and groundwater. Next. And last year, we published this paper synthesizing data from 3,500 plots across 19 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. And one of the main findings was that across all these sites, we find a positive effect of tree cover on infiltration capacity. Next, please. So the conclusions are that trees on farms can improve soil hydrological functioning and contribute to water and food security, that an intermediate tree cover can maximize groundwater recharge. And also I would like to highlight that still more knowledge is needed for tailoring guidance to local needs and contexts in these agroforestry systems. So with that, I would like to thank everyone, all my collaborators. Thanks for the opportunity to being here.
Thank you so much, Aida. And thank you also for helping us to move outside of the forest, beyond forest, and see the trees in the landscape and what they benefit to, and to include this knowledge that you shared and you've been also taking forward on hydrology and trees, and take this forward in restoration efforts. So thank you so much, and we're good on time. So far, great. Thank you both, Gabriel, Nesibu, and Nicolas and Ida, for sharing how forests can benefit agriculture through its effect on the water cycles in several different ways. So jumping from these great cases, we will now go into our third part of the session here today. We will have an interactive panel on building bridges across sectors and for upscaling, through which we will explore how we can change the narrative around forest for water and agriculture and ensure uptake. So I would like to welcome also the panel up on stage, and we'll have also panelists joining us online. We will have Sarah Casellas, Forestry Officer at FIO in Rome. We'll have Dr. Malin Lundberg Ingemarsson, Research Advisor, Stockholm International Water Institute, CV. So you can all join up here. We'll be standing panel. Then online, we will have Fernando Cisneros, Technical Specialist in Integrated Water Resource Management of the implementation of the Strategic Action Program of the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, ACTO, joining us online. And we will have Dr. Salarm Kubega, Research Fellow, Stockholm Environment Institute and CIANI, joining us as well. And we will have also online, now it's filling up, that's great. Yeah. Great, we will have Ansa Randriano Rivero, a PhD candidate in the field of forest landscape restoration governance at the University of Antananarivo in Madagascar, with experience from Forest for Future, that is a part of Madagascar's commitment to the restoration initiative AFR 100, and she will join us online. So, warm welcome. Let me just check that we have both online panels with us, and maybe we could also, will we get them up? Yeah, great. Okay, so we'll start. So I will ask a few questions to the panelists here today, so we can dig deeper into how this science can be taken up. From the presentations, we've learned how forests benefit agriculture through the water cycle. So the science is there. It's complex, it's diverse, but it's there. What do you see as the challenges in the uptake of this science from the context and work and research that you are active in? And here I would like to turn to first Salarm, and then Fernando and Ansa to join us. So
thanks. I'd like to speak mainly from the researcher's perspective, thinking a little bit about how researchers interact with policymakers in terms of taking up the scientific evidence into policy and action. I think one of the main points to make here is that policymakers may not consider the evidence to be strong enough or adequate enough for them to go forward with using it in policymaking or in encouraging practices. And usually policymakers are thinking about foolproof solutions, something that is the wonderful one solution that they can implement and get the benefits from it. And they consider so many other things besides the scientific evidence when they are trying to make a policy. They're considering the cost, they're considering the feasibility and other things. So it's not just the scientific evidence that is getting them to make the decision. And most of the evidence that we're providing as researchers also have multiple trade-offs and gaps within them, and that's what gives them a little bit of lag in terms of their ability to take forward the evidence. In terms of the forestry sector, for example, in the relation between forest and agriculture, we see that there are trade-offs between forest conservation and agriculture expansion. So you either conserve the forest or you expand agriculture, and that's what the evidence has been so far. So policymakers are not so buying into that sort of narrative. We also have some trade-offs around, well, if you conserve the forest and plant trees, in a farm or even produce crops within an agroforestry system, then there are some competition between the crops and the trees as well for sunshine, for other nutrients, and so on. So policymakers are not so bought on that narrative. They want some foolproof solutions. There are also multiple gaps that we have in the literature. For example, we don't know so much about the synergistic effects between multiple ecosystem benefits. We know about one benefit or the other benefit in terms of pollination or biocontrol and so on, but the synergistic effects we don't know so much about. So those are spaces that we need to invest more in order to get a scientific evidence to a level that policymakers are interested in. I can just make a second point briefly, which is that there's a huge disconnect between the research and policy because of this passing the baton mentality, where policymakers or researchers do their research, get to a certain point, and then just say that now it's time for you policymakers to take it up. But a lot of the times, policymakers don't know how to take up that research. We need to have better coordination between the researchers and policymakers rather than a situation where my job ends and your job starts there and trying to pass the baton. But researchers themselves are not incentivized to take the evidence forward into policymaking because there's no benefit you get from it. As a researcher, it's about publication, and when you publish, that's where you get your accolades from the publication. You go present your scientific audience, get the accolades, and so on. And then you just leave it down somewhere and expect the policymakers to take it up from there. But a lot of the times they're not able to take it. So this idea of passing forward the baton is not really working. We need to have a situation where there are better interactions between the policymakers and the researchers, so that the researchers are able to guide and support the policymakers in the process of using this evidence that has been generated into action and in practice.
Thank you so much, Shalom. And I think that's also great why many of our organizers and others here at the World Water Week are working in this interface between research, policy, and practice. So thank you. And on the same questions from your context, I would like to turn to Fernando first and then Ansa to short hear how you see these challenges of the uptake of the science. So if we start with you, Fernando.
Thank you, Marianne. Please, could you confirm that you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well, we see you well. So
okay, great. I'm going to answer this question sharing the experience that we are working with ACTO member countries. Since the ACTO member countries agreed on a shared vision for water resource in the Amazon, we have been working through the strategic action programs to connect the sectors and provide integrated planning in the national and transboundary level. One of the biggest challenges is moving from isolated policies to more integrated approach. One way to provide these challenges, we are conducting a nexus approach study. This study, developed with the support of IDB and the Amazon Basin Project, shows that we cannot manage water, energy, forest, environment, and agriculture separately anymore. This study provides that the climate change is increasing season water stress, and by 2030 and 2050, we expect reduction of up to 20% in dry season flows in critical subbasins into the Amazon. The science is clear, but the challenge is the intersectoral coordinations. Governments and sectors need tools and data to make joint decisions. For example, we are using for this study, for this next study, we are using two kinds of analytical tools. The first one is the hydrobit, and the other one is the what-if models. Both help to the countries and duration to simulate different scenarios of climate, land use, and infrastructures. These tools help us to understand trade-off between deforestation, energy production, and food security. In short, the science is there, but we must work together across the sectors, improve data, and make plan integrated investments to make agriculture and water management more resilient under climate change. That is our experience. Marianne, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will get back to you as well. And now we will hear from Ansa. So very different context, but similarities also, Amazon and Madagascar. So welcome, Ansa.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to participate on this session with you today. Thank you, Maria, for these important questions. This presentation have made it clear that the connection between forest, water, and agriculture is scientifically established, yet turning to the science into action remains the major challenge, especially in many developing countries where several barriers in their implementation. The first challenge is that science is not always heard or used. Too often, research findings are remembered in reports or shelved in drawers. In Madagascar, for instance, several studies was being conducted, but these findings rarely translate into public policy or territorial planning. Secondly, sectorial policies remain fragmented. Forestry moves on direction, agriculture is another, and water management somewhere else entirely. This lack of coordination prevents the kind of integrated approach that is urgently needs. Thirdly, there is a lack of visibility and scaling of effective local practices. Many techniques inspired by science, such as agroforestry, forest landscape management for water, and spring restoration, already exist, but their uptake remains limited to the lack of tailored funding, technical training, and sometimes political will. I want to point out about land governance is also a major obstacle. In Madagascar, as in other countries, farmers are reluctant to invest in sustainable forest practices when they are unsure about their land tenure. This insecurity limits a long-term adoption of nature-based solution. In conclusion, for my part, the science is available and the solutions are known. The real challenge lies in creating the enabling condition of the science to be heard, valued, and turned into concrete action. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much, Ansa. Before moving on, I would just like to say that we have some photos from the panelists that we see on this screen, but not up. Is it possible to have the photo with the panelists, or? We see a photo from Ansa that is shared here on the screen by Yigshan at FAO that we see here, but we would like to show Ansa's photo to the audience. If that is possible to keep like side by side what we see on this screen. And then Ansa, maybe you could just share very brief what's this landscape that we see, where you've taken us, if possible to view.
Okay, I try, but then...
Will we see? We don't see it yet. There it is. Okay, great. So where are we here in the great photo that you shared with us?
Okay.
We now see it. So if you could you give us some context to where?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Some context. It's the landscape in north of Madagascar that many projects implement some forest landscape restoration feat. You can see in the above of a reforestation action to protect agricultural pastures and water management on the ground. And it's the picture remind me that it's very important to consider every intersectoral sectors to consider the situation and fit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for showing the image. We also had one by Salorm, beautiful, but we will move on now. Sorry. So we'll move into a next question, and also bring in Malin to start answering this one. So we've heard about the challenges, but then turning this around, what do you think are some of the key conditions that is needed to translate this science to underground actions? I would like to hear from Malin, and then short from Ansa and Fernando Salom.
Thank you, Maria. Well, one key condition that we're working a lot on now, I would say, it's the integrated approaches. And this is something that we really we are kind of already there. This is mentioned over and over in sessions and when we are collaborating with different partners. But and integrated approaches, that is when we work across sectors, we link different levels of society, international, national, and down to local. But we also take into consideration different interests and different knowledge systems. And integrated approaches, that's also to ensure that all relevant stakeholders are at the table and are part of the work of the transition. And this is complex and it takes time, and that's why we are a little bit like, ooh, how are we doing this? But from my experience, I think that what we see now is that there are many different tools and methodologies there to help us along the way in this. And one example that I would like to show, there might be a photo.
Yes, we will see it.
So what we are developing in Siwi is a tool called Water Smart FLR tool. So it's FLR, Forest and Landscape Restoration. And we are working together with GIZ and SIDA on this. And this tool, it's a way of better integrating hydrological processes and water resources in FLR, because there is so much funding going into restoration initiatives all over the world, but water is rarely taken into consideration as much as it could and should. And here's the photo. So I'm just back from a field trip in Madagascar. I was not meeting with Ansa there, unfortunately, but this is a little bit similar area as showed in her photo. And here is a way of what we are working with the local community. They have already done some management operations to channel the water from the way back in the photo is the source of the water in the watershed, and then it's running down towards paddy fields and local communities. And what they need now is to do some operations in these upper hill areas to restore those areas. And this methodology that we have, it's a way of working with stakeholders and levels and all of this. So it's really an integrated approach.
Thank you, Malin. And time is flying, so we'll fly back to Ansa and then Fernando on this same question, and keep your answers brief, and then we'll move on to some more questions. So Ansa?
Okay, thank you. To move for sciences to real impact on the ground, several case conditions must be made, especially in contexts like our countries in Madagascar are more broadly close, meaning developing countries. For example, we need to create gaining spaces for intersectoral collaboration. Is very important to combine these different sectors. About landscape initiative and different interconnection between forest, water, and food system. Secondly, public policies must be explicitly recognize the benefits of forests for water and agricultural sectors. We must support also action on the ground through simple, context-appropriate tools. But tools alone are not enough, but we need also to build local capacity. And finally, long-term success requires strong community involvement. It's very important. In short, to bring science into practice, we need policy coherence, use-friendly tools, local skills, inclusive governance, and financial mechanisms that make change viable through on the front of lines.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ansa. That was very comprehensive, covering a lot of aspects that we work with. I don't know, Fernando, if you have anything you want to complement moving forward on this.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maria. Very quickly. We have, we think, in 3 points. The first one is strengthening and a strong coordination between sectors. The second one is we need to provide to the governments practical tools and better data to get decisions. And the third one is that we are working in the capacity building into the sectors. In essential, we need to provide technical training, extension service, and simple tools to the government with capacity building. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to very quickly turn to the audience to hear very short from you before moving on to the next question. So we will have a quick Menti that we had before. You can scan the code or join via the link and share and name a sector or stakeholder that you think is key for uptake and implementation of this science. Of course, it's not one, but if you would name one key, what would that be? And we'll see a word cloud coming up before we move on to the final part of this session. So I don't know, we will, after you have scanned this, if we'll start to see a cloud, if we can swap to that. Of course, there are many key, as we've heard, local communities, government, policy. Is the one sector that we have, agriculture, of course. Finance, of course. Private sector, public health. You see there are many, of course, that needs to be involved. Government. Yes. So this can continue a bit, but we will move on. So we talked about the different conditions that are needed to translate science into practice. And in agriculture, it also has to be a good business case for greater uptake by the sector, as we see agriculture is part here. So I would like to turn to Sarah, joining the panel, and then back to Malin briefly. Do you think there's potential for creating financial incentives as business cases for managing forests for agriculture? So brief, if you could share if you have such an example from your work.
Yes, thank you, Maria. Very quickly, we are talking about different sectors. We're talking about the forestry sector, the water sector, the agriculture sector. At the end of the day, everything that we have talked about in this session is building on to agriculture and farmers, and it's their livelihoods. It's their home, and it's also their livelihoods. So we do need for the science, for the policy to be implemented, for the uptake, we need buy-in. And so we need solutions that allow farmers to implement the science that we have heard of today. So let me give you two examples of the work that we're doing at FAO. The first one is from Zambia. Oh, here is a picture. We're doing a forest water climate assessment in the headwaters of the Zambezi. This is one of the most forested areas in the country. It's an agricultural area. It has mining. It's where the Zambezi is born. And maybe a quick trivia question: how many countries are part of the Zambezi Basin? From the audience, a guess? Yes. Keep going. Maybe someone else. 8, excellent, thank you. So whatever happens in this headwaters will definitely have an impact downstream. So what we're looking at is community forest management and working together with the government to implement plans, forest management plans, and link that to the water management plans, to the planning of the Zambezi. And how whatever this farmers, these community forest management groups that are also growing food in this area can impact water quantity, quality, availability in time. And so people are at the core of this. But we need data, we need capacity development, as we mentioned, and we need all the sectors to be there. We need the agricultural sector, we need the water sector, the foresters, and here is a workshop that we did on how data can help us, and local data, because we have global data sets. I think we could manage the whole world from remote sensing data, but we also need that local data for models to be able to help us in management. And so this is what we're doing here. We did a training last year with colleagues from the different government agencies and local universities. So this was done with the support of the UN RED program and technical assistance to Zambia. And before I go, this is what we're hoping to do with this, is that this can inform carbon markets. And so some of the initiatives that we see are, for example, carbon plus water plus biodiversity. So these areas are not just providing carbon, they're also providing benefits for food, for water, and so on. So there is an opportunity to reach out to the different sectors. In the case of forests, maybe the carbon markets. In the case of water, maybe we can look at the water funds. In the case of agriculture, maybe we can repurpose some of those agricultural subsidies that exist in many countries. So there are options, and the invitation is to for everyone to start thinking of those innovative ways that we can use what we already have, because it's not about creating a number of new things, it's maybe repurposing what we already have, the policies that we already have, and maybe looking at things in a different way, stepping out of the box, right? So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Yes, and then over to Malin, if you want to add from your experience.
Yes, it's kind of the same thing in another way, I would say, because one way of attracting finance is really to share good examples, best practices. And so the tool that I was talking about, it's a pilot still. We're developing it still, and we have done it in four pilot countries. And what we see already is that when we can show our work in one local area, and then we are working with the national stakeholders also, and they see the effect on that local level, then they want to scale up and bring it to other areas in that country. So that is one way also of scaling up. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you so much. And before closing the panel, I would like to see if Fernando and Ansa, if you have like a one sentence, one action that you think could increase the recognition of harnessing of benefits of forests for agriculture. If you would mention one thing, you get the. Yes, we'll start with Ansa, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. One characteristic and action impact measure will be systematically integrate the ecosystem services of forest into national agricultural and climate policies. Making forest contribution to agricultural and food security visible is powerful, the first step toward coherent, durable, and multi-sectoral action. Thank you
so much. Very important. Over to you, Fernando. One.
For my side, I think if I had to choose one action, I will be to promote integrated planning across the sectors. It's just that I think we are working in this sense, and is working with the governments right now.
Yes. Thank you so much, and we look. There will be a lot of eyes on your region soon coming up in these issues on COP30 in Brazil. So with that, we would like to thank the panel for this part. Yes. Thank you, Fernando and Ansa. And as the sort of closing, I would like to invite Sarah to share just a little teaser about the upcoming report, and that you will be able to take part of, and we'll hear just briefly from a few of the chapter authors.
Thank you. So as Amy mentioned, this is a report that will come out at COP30. We have a number of the authors here, so us and Rafaela over there. So we have over 40 authors from over 25 organizations. And just like this session, we have brought together people and researchers from different walks of life that work in this topic. So this is going to be launched at COP30 again, and we will have in-depth information on all the different topics that we saw here today, the science, the mechanisms, workers' health. We're looking into forest benefits for pollinators and biodiversity, but also key actions and next steps. How can we move it forward? How can we engage all the sectors? So please scan the QR code. We will collect some of your information, just your email, so we have a way of following up in case you wish to receive the report later in the year.
Yes, Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for sharing the sign-up link. And while you fill in your name and email address so that you will be able to receive the report when it's launched and stay in contact with this amazing group of experts and also share and contact us, I would like to quickly turn to some of the authors here on stage. And we also have Rafael and other authors here today. And I would like to end with a challenge to you and ask you to be visionary for the future of bridging forest, water and agriculture, and really like think outside the box in your writing of the report and recommendation, and think higher, sort of what dream action in policy and practice would you like to see that you don't see today, that you don't see enough of or at all, but you would like to see in the future. Something that might be a real game changer in how benefits of forest for water and agriculture is viewed and acted on. So let's start with Malin. What is your dream action?
Thank you, Maria. Thank you. So my dream action is we really need to change our way of thinking and our way of working, so that we, when it comes to local knowledge, traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, that we value that as high as we value our modern sciences. These are different knowledge systems, and we really need to make them work side by side, because we need it all. We need the modern science, of course, but there is so much other knowledge that we need in order for that modern science to work. So that is really my dream.
Yes, weaving knowledges. Thank you so much. So, Salarm, what is your dream action you want to see more of?
I think we need strong transboundary governance of forest and water resources. We have a situation where forests are located in one country, but the benefits are felt elsewhere. For example, you think about how evapotranspiration occurs and how rainfall falls elsewhere. Maybe from the Amazon, benefits are going to other countries close to Brazil and so on. So we need really, really strong mechanisms in place that help to govern forest resources, not as a resource that is located in one country only for their benefit. And for that matter, they can deforest it, but rather a resource that needs to be protected for our shared prosperity as a people.
Thank you so much.
For me,
Sarah.
it's really the recognition of the key role of communities and farmers in the agricultural sector, and in ensuring that we get all those benefits that we have talked about today. Why we need to adapt. Climate change is here, we need to adapt, and as Amy mentioned, the discourse has been concentrating on the mitigation, but the agriculture sector needs to adapt. And this is all this, the presentations here today showed how we can do that, what we need to take into account, and at the end of the day, we will reach food and water security by adapting to climate change. So that's my goal. Include the communities, ensure their role is recognized, and use them as champions for this.
Thank you so much. That would be a really cool forest future. And I think all of your answers really show the complexity here. Not only are the issues connected, but as Salarm pointed out, it's connected across regions in the world. So it's a really tricky challenge, and we need to collaborate here. So we are on time, and I would like to thank all in the panel. And before you leave, I would like to share my thanks to the presenters, panelists, speakers for sharing your views and experiences. And a special thanks goes out to FIO, SEI, SIANI, SLU, CV, and Focali for making this session possible. But we would like to especially thank our colleague Jigchen with us from FIO in Rome and online, who has been really supporting these preparations and everything back end here today. So thank you so much, Jigchen. And thank you all participants for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the World Water Week events. And really do reach out to us. We're happy to engage, and you have Sarah's email here on the screen. Reach out if you have any questions, suggestions of collaborations, etc. And we will be staying here a little bit, so welcome to connect. Thank you all for joining.